Welcome to Across Campus. I'm Dakota Taylor. As we're recording this episode, we're 3 days into the fall 2020 semester. It's been an interesting semester already with hybrid classes, virtual events, and mandatory mask wearing. So what better time to sit down with ESU's Director of Student Wellness, Mary McDaniel-Anshutz, to learn more about how COVID-19 has affected Emporia State and how we're using technology to make interacting with the Student Wellness Center both safer and more convenient. Thanks for talking with us, Mary. We know your time is very valuable these days, and so we're grateful to be able to spend some of it with you. To start there, how has COVID-19 changed what you do on a daily basis?
Well, COVID, I think, has changed what everybody does on a daily basis, right?
Absolutely.
And so to the freshmen out there, the new students who have only seen me like this, hello, that's what I really look like. So we'll start there. So on a daily basis, I would say that it's hard to tell because this is just day 3, but we really are being more aware of what symptoms could be COVID related and making sure to not have those come in on a regular schedule and having those separate through calling it the respiratory clinic. Although, as you know, not all COVID symptoms are respiratory, but that sounds better than the COVID room. So we're calling it the respiratory clinic. And just making sure that we have adequate resources to take care of that.
Very good. And so as a student, we've had a way to digitally schedule appointments before. How have you had to adapt your services? And if I needed to visit the Student Wellness Center, what would that look like now?
So we actually had to shut that off yesterday because so we've been emphasizing calling if you have respiratory or possible COVID symptoms because we don't want students to just show up with those symptoms. We have a process in place for managing that separately. And obviously we did not do a good job getting that message out because as soon as we turned the web booking back on, people started booking respiratory symptoms, sore throats. And then we spent a lot of time trying to track people down and say, oh no, we need to do this. So we just had to turn it back off because we really just need to have students be screened by a nurse, and then make arrangements for a time to come in and visit the respiratory clinic.
So with there being the differences in scheduling now, what would the difference be if I needed to schedule an appointment for COVID symptoms or versus having sprained my ankle?
Sure. So if you sprained your ankle, you're going to just make the appointment and come in. The only difference there really is that instead of, we've had 2 check-in kiosks before. There still are 2, but now one is designated for use just for well people who don't have any illness of any kind. And that's got a blue sign and you check in there and then follow the blue arrows. We have a well waiting room to that waiting area. So we're trying to separate well from sick, sprained ankle, whatever the scenario was, would follow those arrows to the well waiting room. And then someone with possible COVID symptoms, when you call, we're going to go through those, a checklist with you, a list of symptoms and other things. And then if you're off campus and you're driving, we're going to have you drive onto campus, and we now have some designated short-term, like 30-minute short-term parking right up close, right? It's like right behind Plum Hall there, that we're going to give you permission to park in. It's the only time that you get to do that.
Very nice.
Yeah. and call or text a special number, depending on what the nurse tells you to do, when you arrive, and then remain outside until the nurse comes to get you, so that you don't have to touch the doors or anything. It's a very controlled situation. and the nurse will bring you in to the respiratory clinic, which is not inside the wellness center. It's by the bathrooms outside the wellness center.
Okay.
And everything takes place outside the wellness center, so that potential students who potentially have COVID illness are not going to be exposing other people who don't.
Yeah.
And then that all takes place. The specimens are collected there and then taken into the lab. And then while we have rapid testing available, it takes about 15 minutes. And so while we're waiting on that 15 minutes, we're collecting information during that time. So
it's a fact. That's really quick results. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to be able to do that. We had an analyzer already that we used to do our rapid flu test, influenza test, that we were able to do an upgrade to the machine itself to be able to run the rapid SARS COVID tests.
Yeah.
So we were very fortunate to be able to do that. So, and because we had an existing machine, we were on the priority list to be able to buy those tests. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And so if, say, a student were uncomfortable to come in with all the precautions being taken, are there virtual appointments that are 100% virtual through the Student Wellness Center?
So counseling is almost 100% virtual, if that's what is that what you're talking about?
Either or. So like if a student wanted to come in for a wellness check, would there be an option for them just to do like a tele meeting with the doctor?
It depends what it's for. If it was for something that can be done in that way, we can attempt to manage it that way. There are a lot of things that we do that you just can't do that way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we do that involve physical assessment.
Yeah.
We were not, during the time that we were remote, we did not have a successful Zoom experience with telehealth, but that was because our providers both were in bad internet areas. It doesn't work very well. You guys, you did your best. You tried the hotspots, everything, but it just, on a windy day, or if the rest of the family was doing their schoolwork, it just didn't work. So we really haven't gotten into that very much, but no matter what, we're going to make sure that the student is taken care of. So if that's an issue, we'll make it work.
Good deal. And obviously calling your office is an option, but do you guys offer email or texting or other chat options to be able to communicate with your office?
Right now, primarily it's phone, although we do have the secure messaging through the portal, the way that you would make an appointment if I hadn't shut you off. You can also message us through that, and it's secure so that you can talk about medical stuff, and it's HIPAA compliant. That's the problem with being able to do text and other stuff, is that it's most,
as strong as it is through the portal.
Yeah, you run into HIPAA compliance issues with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say as a student, I run through the daily COVID-19 assessment one morning and I have 1 or 2 symptoms. What would I do in that scenario?
Give us a call, ask to talk to a nurse and say you've experienced some COVID symptoms. And then, we're gonna talk that through. And sometimes, when you've been all COVID all the time, you kind of forget that there are other things.
Allergies, common cold.
Right. I did that in April. I woke up in the middle of the night and my throat, and I'm kind of coughing. I'm like, oh no, this is it, And then you're like, your brain starts working. And I was like, okay, people are burning their pastures. This happens every time this year. You are okay. You are not dying,
Absolutely.
And of course, yeah, I was fine. So, you talk through those things, and honestly, we're really erring on the side of caution though, and not just assuming it's allergies, because we have had students who are positive that have absolutely no symptoms whatsoever, none, nada. We've had students who have had the very mildest of symptoms, had students that have had symptoms for a matter of hours, on up to, people who have been very, very ill. So it's a very strange virus and it affects everybody differently. and just can't assume anything.
You do the best you can. Okay, and so with you brought up earlier how it is a rapid test. The original question I had was, does the Student Wellness Center offer the same test? But it sounds like you guys have a different test incoming than the one that the students and employees took before school started.
What we're mostly doing in the Student Health Center is managing positive tests and outbreak control, outbreak management, stopping it.
Yeah.
And so the purpose of the rapid test is to be able to, if someone comes in with symptoms, to be able to very quickly determine if they're positive, so that you can very quickly trigger the public health system to start doing that contact tracing and get people quarantined so they're not out making other people sick, so you can get that web, make it smaller.
Yep.
And so, I think that's just absolutely critical on a campus where you have a lot of people together. You were talking about the, places like congregate housing, like residence halls or Greek housing or things like that.
Yeah.
You definitely need to get people quarantined when you have a positive. So that's the value of being able to do that rapid test. And then we also have available, we do have other tests available. We have a saliva test available, although it's not the same one that was done on the mass screening before school. Sorry, I just have noise everywhere. But we started using it a little bit before school started to finish up some of the athletes using a lab that we've used for years for other things. Cytocheck is their name. Very easy to work with, and it's not a self-collection process. It's one that you come in and collect in the lab, and we manage the paperwork. You don't have to do that yourself.
Yeah.
And we've done several of those. We also have the original, the gold standard, the most sensitive test is the one that everybody dreads, the one that's collected by nasopharyngeal swab that you send off for the PCR testing. That is, that's the gold standard. And we do have that still available as well. That was what we had available first, and we still do have it. It's getting harder to get the nasopharyngeal swabs. The good news is the rapid tests are just nasal swabs, not nasopharyngeal, so they don't have to go back so far. They're just inside the nostril.
Very nice, very nice. Good to know.
Yeah.
So turning it back to technology and what you had brought up earlier with the contact tracing, we've heard that Apple and Google are developing reporting capabilities through our smartphones. Is ESU participating in anything along those lines?
No, not that I'm aware of. In Kansas, I'm not even sure really the legalities of all of that. I'm not sure. But the best way that contact tracing happens, and actually the legal responsibility for contact tracing, is within the public health system. And we are so fortunate here that our Lyon County public health folks are just, they're on it. They do a great job. And we're also fortunate that we have a great working relationship with them. We've been attending monthly meetings with them. Well, I've been doing it since 2006-ish, I think. Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
Obviously not about COVID, but
yeah,
about various, it was H1N1, pandemic flu, and then sometimes it's tornadoes and just various disaster preparedness kinds of things. And because of that, we know the other players in town. We know who fire is, we know who EMS is, we know all the people who have a vested interest in making sure that the community and the campus are safe. And so when we run into an issue, we know who to call and how to get a hold of them, which has been really helpful during this process. Our emergency manager here on campus, Andy McHenry, he's been just a short timer in his position here, but he's been really active in that as well, and that's been really helpful in the process.
I mentioned the daily assessment web app that our team had developed. Why is it important that we check this every day before we come to class or campus?
I think we're so used to just kind of functioning on autopilot, right? you get up and even, a lot of times you don't feel good and you just kind of, you do that little mental suck it up, buttercup, you're just like, all right, I'm going to power through. This is an occasion, this is a situation where that's not a good thing. That's not the way to go about this. If you're not feeling good, if you're not feeling well, you need to, and just don't even leave it up to chance. You need to, think of those symptoms, go through that checklist. And if you're having some of those, you need to err on the side of caution and stay home, because you can very easily spread that to other people by trying to power through it. I think as a people pride ourselves in being, tough, and this is not one of those situations where that's advisable.
Yeah, for sure. My last question is a two-parter. Move into the fall semester, what keeps you up at night? What is concerning you as we start to move? Third day in, but as we start to move into the semester, what is on your brain?
Oh, so many things.
Imagine.
The main thing is I just worry about students. I vaguely remember what it's like to be young. I mean, it's a long time ago. But, I know students have been cooped up away from each other for a long time. March, whoa, that was the longest spring break in history, right?
Yeah.
And, everybody's back together and everybody, we have all these rules. And everybody has good intentions and they're on campus and you're following the rules. And oh man, there's a party this weekend and you shouldn't, but you want to see your friends and haven't hugged anybody in 5 months. That's what keeps me up at night.
That's a very good concern. And so the second part is, are there things today that you think we might look back on when COVID is over and think we should have done more of that, or we should have emphasized that stronger?
I hope that we'll all give each other and ourselves a lot of grace, because this is our first apocalypse. I just keep saying that, we haven't had anything to this magnitude before, and it's a lot easier to look backwards and see where the pieces could have fit differently. And when it's the first pandemic of this magnitude, I don't know that that's always fair. I think it's fair to look back at it and use those as lessons for the future.
Absolutely.
That's totally legit and a very wise thing to do. But
change the past can only improve what you do in the future.
Absolutely. But in terms of, criticizing each other and, pointing fingers and placing blame, I think we just need to all right now do the best we know how to do, take personal responsibility for our own actions, and, just give each other some grace and get through this together the best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us or our viewers?
I can't think of anything except just be safe, everybody, during the week and on the weekends.
All right. Thank you very much, Mary. I think this was very informative to our viewers, and we hope you'll come back and talk with us again.
I would love it.
Concluding this episode of Across Campus, Mary shared some informative insight that you and your fellow student body can take and apply to these new times we're adjusting to. As always, if you are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and share this with a friend. I'm Dakota Taylor, and we'll see you next time.